Welcome to Listenwise News Bites, where you can hear stories from the news that are specially selected for young listeners. I'm Monica Brady-Meyerov, a public radio reporter and the founder of Listenwise, an award-winning online listening resource used by teachers. We have a curated collection of more than 2,000 podcasts from sources such as NPR and other producers of high-quality audio storytelling. In this episode, we learn about the health benefits of wearing a mask, and we hear about the controversy over a statue that memorializes the end of slavery. And anyone for a game of chess from space? First, a story about how a mask can protect you and others.
As we just heard, even though most face masks make lip reading harder or cover a smile, we've been told again and again to wear them because wearing a mask lowers the chances that you will spread COVID-19 to others. But a growing body of evidence suggests that the opposite is also true. That is, wearing a mask might protect you too. Here to walk us through the research is Dr. Monica Gandhi, an infectious disease specialist at the University of California, San Francisco. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, so briefly walk us through the theory here. How are masks also beneficial for the people wearing them?
Right. So as you said, they're very beneficial to protect others because you shed at high rates from your nose and mouth even when you feel fine. So that had been kind of the party line for a while. Mm-hmm. But they really are protective of you as an individual. And sort of putting it all together, it really is that the less virus that you get in, the less sick you're likely to be. So not only do masks protect you, and we've seen from getting the virus and all together, and that's been seen in hamster studies, that's been seen in a healthcare worker study that was just published last week in JAMA. But if you do get the virus in, you get very little in, and you're likely to get what's called an asymptomatic infection or not have any symptoms at all, or a very mild infection. So it really is based on the fact that we've known for many years now, probably 100, that the more virus you get into your system, the more likely you are to get sick. And these masks protect you.
Oh, that's so interesting. So if mask wearing does turn out to lower the severity of the disease because you're lowering the amount of virus that you're taking in, would that translate then to fewer deaths?
Yes. So it really looks like any country that has adopted universal mask wearing, and many, many countries have, even as they open up and they're seeing each other more and there's more cases, it has led to much, much fewer deaths or severe illness. So the idea about this virus is it's completely bizarre how it can cause no symptoms in some people and very, very severe symptoms in others. Yeah. And what we want to do by wearing a mask is get down the bad stuff about this virus that it can cause very severe illness. And yes, we've absolutely not only seen that in countries, but even in settings where there are outbreaks, but everyone masked. There's like a 95% rate of not having symptoms at all. There was actually an outbreak in a chicken factory, outbreak in a seafood factory in this country, but everyone was masking and it was 95% asymptomatic rate of infection.
Oh, that is fascinating. I mean, mask wearing has become divisive, right? It's a political issue in many parts of the country. Do you think this evidence could help change the public health messaging around masks by appealing to people's self-interest?
Yes, I think that what I'm hoping for is that I do understand that politics always gets into everything. This will protect you, your family, as well as others. This will protect you. That means that we should all be wearing a mask because we need to get through this pandemic. We are miserable. This is taking a long time. And if we all put this over our faces, we will get through it faster.
That story was from NPR, and I liked how she said, we are all miserable, but we'll get through this faster if we all wear masks. Do you think learning that masks protect the wearer will encourage more people to wear them? Next, a story about a statue of Abraham Lincoln and the end of slavery. It's raised a lot of controversy.
In the nationwide reckoning over issues of racial justice, one of the latest flashpoints is a statue of Abraham Lincoln in a Washington, D.C. park named for the former president. The debate over that statue, whether it's offensive, Whether It Should Go reflects a very old conversation about America's history and symbols. NPR's Tim Mack has more.
The Emancipation Memorial depicts President Abraham Lincoln standing, holding a copy of the Emancipation Proclamation in one hand. At Lincoln's feet, a black man crouches, his wrists with broken shackles, his fists clenched, one knee to the ground and the other knee raised. His eyes look out towards the horizon. But there's an argument over whether the man is depicted as subservient or in the process of liberation. The statue, in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Washington, D.C., has been the site of protests this week, coming to a head last night.
Welcome, everybody.
Young protesters organized to tear the statue down, asking on social media for supplies and hands to make it so. At the park, they made their goal clear.
Are you guys done hearing from people who do not want change? So what are we going to do? We are going to tear that down!
The announcement of their intentions had drawn a small police presence and the installation of large fences around the statue. Passions led to an ideological clash among DC's black residents, and the divides were generational. Supporters point to what they say is an important history behind the statue's creation. The statue was mostly paid for by freed slaves and designed by a white man. It was built in 1876. Frederick Douglass spoke at the dedication. Marsha Cole is a 71-year-old black woman, a historical reenactor who came dressed as Charlotte Scott, a former enslaved person who gave money to build this memorial. Cole says she sees a liberated figure.
He's not kneeling on two knees. He's rising. You look at his hands, he's pushing off. He's not shackled to anyone. He's holding the broken chains of slavery in his hands, signifying he's assuming his rightful place in freedom.
33-year-old Candace Eddington works for a consulting firm in Washington and sees it very differently. To her, Lincoln was not a liberator.
And it made me disgusted, quite frankly. The fact that you have a man kneeling at the feet of Lincoln, it symbolized servitude, it symbolized oppression, and it doesn't symbolize freedom or emancipation in any shape, form, or fashion to me.
As the group of young protesters explained their objections, older demonstrators interrupted to make their case.
You young people would not be here if it wasn't on the backs of us old folks.
Even among opponents of the statue, there are a variety of opinions. Some want it torn down now. Others, like Marcus Goodwin, who started a petition for the statue's removal and is a local affordable housing advocate running for office, want to work through the system.
When I started this conversation, it was about removing the statue, but doing it through a legislative process, through the Department of Interior and the National Park Service, to ensure that we find a new home for this piece of history and replace it with preferably an African-American woman.
For almost all of the people present in the park that evening, tearing down racism starts with tearing down racist symbols like statues of Confederate officers. But the scene on Friday night, and the generational split in the black community over how to interpret this memorial, shows there are grayer spaces in this conversation, where meaning is contested. Tim Mack, NPR News, Washington.
It's interesting to hear different opinions from older and younger people about what to do with the statue. What do you think should be done with historical statues that are offensive? And now it's time for some weird news and a story about a chess game of universal proportions.
Good morning, I'm Noelle King. On Tuesday, 2 astronauts on board the International Space Station played a game of chess against a Russian grandmaster down on Earth. It was the 50th anniversary of a space versus Earth match played in June 1970. During that game, the players communicated their moves over the radio. This time, the astronauts used an iPad and they live streamed the match. It ended in a draw after only about 15 minutes.
Thanks to our partner NPR and to Scott Holmes for our theme music. That's it for the Listenwise News Bites podcast this week. For more stories from the news selected for young listeners, go to www.listenwise.com and sign up for free. And subscribe to this podcast for our weekly shows. Happy listening.